Hello and welcome back to another episode of Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Justice for All. We are continuing with the testimony of protection of Matt or something. But yeah, from the moment I saw the crime scene, I had a feeling that Matt was the murderer. Matt had to kill Juan no matter what, and he didn't have an alibi for what he was doing at the time of the murder. My thoughts were confirmed by the evidence, of course, the button and the knife. But I'm Matt's manager, so I felt that I had to protect him. This does account for everything. Well, I am a logical type. We're finally seeing her true self. She's more nervous than a scared rabbit. If the defense can find no fault with this testimony, I'm ready to make a ruling. Please keep that in mind as you cross-examine Mr. Wright. Looks like somehow everything has swung to the opposite end of the scale again. That just means I have to put my weight into this and turn her logic upside down. Protecting Matt. From the moment I saw the crime scene, I had a feeling that Matt was the murderer. Would you say that was your intuition speaking to you? Don't confuse my method of reasoning with your own. If you want to prove that someone did something, you need three things. A motive, an opportunity to commit the crime, and finally, decisive evidence. And if you think these three things through, the answer becomes quite clear. You have already known that, Phoenix. They didn't teach that to us in school, at least not from what I remember. May I continue now? Matt had to kill Juan no matter what. So what would you say this need came from the press conference? Yes, do you know why Juan chose that event and that hotel for that conference? Because that's when he could cause the most damage to the public beloved Matt Edgard. And you knew of this plan, didn't you, Miss Andrews? Yes, because I was the one who set up the conference and prepared the costume. But I'm sure Mr. Engard himself didn't know anything about the press conference. Oh, really? Can you show me any proof that he didn't know about the press conference? Anyway, the important thing here is that this information was not in your testimony. Yes, I agree. Miss Andrews, please correct your testimony if you please. Grasping at a straw now, are we, Mr. Wright? I know what his motive was, but I don't have any way to prove I'm right. I know what his motive was, but I don't have any way to prove that I'm right. Has Mr. Engel done something to hurt or betray you personally? Why do you ask? You were the one who helped Mr. Corridor with his press conference, and that event was supposed to bring down Mr. Engard, yet you still helped out. The person on trial right now is Mr. Engard, right? What the witness was thinking, helping the victim with his plan, is none of our concern. In any case, this means that the defendant had a motive to kill. Why do I keep doing this to myself? And he didn't have an alibi for what he was doing at the time of the murder. But didn't you already testify earlier that Mr. Engard was taking a nap in his room? Are you telling me that now that too was a lie lie so you could that are you telling me now what that too was a lie so you could cover for Mr. Engard? I'm not telling you anything of that sort. When I went to get him for the show, he honestly was sleeping. However, as to whether he was sleeping the entire time, that I cannot say. I was too busy setting up the stage at the time. I keep trying, but I can find no flaws with what Miss Andrews had said. I can't say the same for some people in this courtroom, however. The judge is glaring straight at Mia. He's glaring at you, smart guy. My thoughts were confirmed by the evidence, of course, the button and the knife. You can hardly call the knife decisive evidence. The fingerprints on the knife could very well be a clever camouflage. Then what about the button? The button? It's clear that the crime scene that the victim and his murderer fought, and during the fight the killer ripped the button from the jamming ninja's costume. You're talking about this button, correct? That button was found in the pleats of Matt's hakama. Isn't that correct? I would think that makes it very decisive evidence. Looks like you were outfoxed again, Mr. Wright. Anyway, the knife doesn't prove a thing. Please fix your testimony. I can't stand the sight of a man who can't gracefully accept his defeat. Thank goodness Mia can still look at me. With an icy stare, yes. Miss Andrews, for Mr. Wright's sake, please add this information to your testimony. That button was torn off Duran's during his fight with Matt. And how do you know that? When the ends of the threads of the button and the costume were matched up, they were found to be a fit together perfectly. Also, I heard. I heard that before too. But why would Miss Andrews know about this case down to such a fine detail? Don't look at me like that, just because I'm prepared and you are not. And I thought I had her this time for sure. If there's anything I tripped her up on, it has to be here, but where and what? Okay. He strangled with a scarf. I don't think that means he was in a fight. Okay, yeah. This is the victim's autopsy report. It clearly states that the cause of death was strangulation by a scarf. Strangulation? The knife stabbed to the victim was done after the victim had already died. And what does that mean? Let's examine the evidence. This button has the victim's blood on it, which would mean that it was ripped off of the costume when? After the knife was stabbed into the victim. Exactly, which means it is impossible that this button was torn off during the victim's final struggle, because the victim was strangled to death in that fight. That's right, Miss Andrews. There is no way this button was ripped off during the struggle. This button was consciously pulled off of the victim's already dead body. Order. What is the meaning? What is the meaning of this, right? So what if the button was torn off the body after the victim had already died? What does that change? Let me ask you one simple question, Mr. Edgeworth. Why was the button torn off? What purpose did that serve? What purpose? We now know this button was not torn off during the fight, so the murderer took the time and effort to purposely rip this from the victim's body. That would mean that the murderer had something in mind, wouldn't it? Mr. Wright, does this mean you know what the murderer wanted to do with this button? What was it? To pin the crime on Engard. There is only one logical reasoning for doing something like that. It was to pin the crime on Mr. Engard. There's no way anyone would put a bloodied button in their own pants. That's right, Mr. Engard was set up. By the real killer, of course. And the real murderer is, well, Mr. Wright, who is in the world is the real killer then? Finally. I can't believe I managed to bring this trial all the way up to this point. Phoenix, you can't let your guard down yet. Not until the very end. The real killer, the person who planted to frame Mr. Engard is... Adrian Andrews. Miss Adrian Andrews. I choose you. You are Miss Corridor's killer. What? Order, Mr. Wright. This is a very grave matter. Do you have any evidence that supports your charges? Any evidence? All of the evidence points to Miss Andrews. Oh, how preposterous. You can't stick any of that on me. I can't? Can I? Would you care to test me? Then what about this knife? The knife was used to stab the victim after he had already been strangled to death. It was used to throw suspicion on Mr. Engard naturally. The knife covered in the defendant's fingerprint could only be taken from his room. And the only one who had dinner with him and knew which knife to take was you. Poor glasses. Then what? What about the button that was found in Matt's Hakama? This button was removed from the victim's body after he had already died. The only people who could have done so were the person who found his body, or the killer. However, if Mr. Engard was the real killer, there's no way he would have put such incriminating evidence in his own Hakama. The only person who could have put this button into Mr. Engard's Hakama is the person who went to wake him from his nap, which is you yet again, Miss Andrews. I see. What about the empty guitar case? This is also another piece of evidence that incriminates Miss Andrews. That costume was used to hide the real killer's identity as they fled the crime scene. Now, who could have known that there was just such a costume inside the guitar case? It could only have been the person who prepared the costume for the victim. And that person is you, Miss Adrian Andrews. No, But Miss Andrews' fingerprints were nowhere to be found on the guitar case. And it was you who proved that she was not wearing gloves at the time. That's right. That's because she did not intend on leaving any prints. If anyone had found out that she had touched the case, they would have asked her why. So to avoid leaving any prints, she used a towel or something else to open it. But the glass of tomato juice is a different story. Miss Andrews purposely left her fingerprints on the glass to show that yes indeed, she was the classic day's discoverer of a dead body. And on top of it all there is this photo. A photo of the killer as they exited the scene of the crime. No reasonable person on Earth can believe this nickel samurai is Mr. Engard. He would be much too short for his own costume if it was him. Speaking of how tall people are, Mr. Andrews, you're also kind of short in stature, are you not? Please stop. Well, how about it, Miss Andrews? I got her this time. Miss Andrews? I refuse. I test to testify. What was that? There's a law. It says I can't be forced to testify about something if it can incriminate me. Well, yes, you are absolutely correct, Miss Andrews. The law does provide us with a way to avoid self-incrimination by allowing a witness to not testify if their testimony can cause damage to themselves. What? Pleading the fifth is not something most people would think on doing on the spot. Actually, thinking back to yesterday in Miss Engard's room, Adrian Andrews, yes, think hard about what we just discussed, understood? Alright. That's it. That's when Francisca planted this idea into her head. She must have told Miss Andrews not to testify if things looked bad. You did a good job proving everything up to this point, Phoenix. But there is still one thing you haven't done. Something I haven't done? Heh. Heh heh. What's wrong, Wright? Are you finished already? Run out of evidence? What is it? What is so humorous, Mr. Edgeworth? I'm sure you realize this as well, Your Honor. But everything the good lawyer here has proven up to this point is meaningless. What? Everything you have proven is circumstantial. Circumstantial? Yes, circumstantial. You have yet to prove a single piece of definitive proof. Proof that Miss Andrews did in fact harbor a wish to murder Miss Corrida. Miss Andrews, did you want to kill Miss Corrida? I believe this may lead to me incriminating myself, so I will abstain from answering this. But Miss Andrews, if you do that, it would be the same as admitting your guilt, don't you think? Maybe so or maybe not. It's nothing to prove it either way. Besides, you don't even know what crime I would be guilty of due to my silence. No, she started taking that defiant attitude again. Mia, what should we do? Somehow we landed in the worst possible situation. I think we have reached a certain conclusion at this point in time. Miss Andrews has refused to testify, and the defense theory that she is actually murderer has not been fully substantiated with solid definitive proof. But that's not true. In this situation, there is only one thing this court can do, and that is to declare a recess. I request that both the prosecution and defense look further into this matter, and at tomorrow's trial, tomorrow. We don't have tomorrow. If we don't get a not guilty verdict today, then please wait, Your Honor. That's not necessary. The trial. Please continue the trial. What are you sweating for? Your client is getting one more day to live, isn't he? That's not it. This isn't about that. Edgeworth, I know you know who the real killer is. Please, let this trial continue. If I don't get the verdict, then Maya. But it's impossible to continue as long as the witness refuses to testify. Now then, this court is... It is not impossible for this trial to continue. Mr. Edgeworth, what are you? If it's true, Miss Andrews holds the right against self-incrimination. However, if the topic of conversation was something unrelated to whatever she may be guilty of, then she has no right to withhold testimony. Yes, that is very true, but actually there is one little thing that I'm curious about. Miss Andrews, when you found the victim's dead body, you poured yourself a glass of juice. Yes, and? I can't help but think how unnatural that is. Unusual when one finds a body, they are shaken up, not stirring a glass of juice. So my actions were unusual, but before you speak, I want to state that if you have a reason behind your action, I would like you to testify to that effect. Testify? Your Honor, I would like to request that the witness testify again as to what happened when she first discovered the victim's body. Whatever we find out in this testimony should in no way implicate the witness. I don't know what it is about Edward today, but I can't get a good read of him. Is he friend or foe? I just don't know. The court acknowledges the prosecution's request. Miss Andrews, if you please. When I found the body, the glass of juice, I didn't really pour it for myself. It was a surprise when I walked into the room and saw it in that messy state, and John, he was sitting slumped over and tired looking in the corner. When I saw him sitting like that, the thought that he was dead didn't cross my mind. To be honest, I thought he had just fainted or something, so I went and poured him some juice. When I realized that he was dead, that's when I knocked the flower vase over. So you poured that glass of juice for the victim. Why didn't you say that so in your earlier testimony? I didn't think I needed to include something so trivial. Phoenix, please be careful here. If you can't find anything wrong with this testimony, then there's nothing left. I know. Edgeworth, what the heck is going on in that brain of yours? Now then, Mr. Wright, you may begin your cross-examination. When I found the body, the glass of juice, I didn't really pour it for myself, but there wasn't anyone else in the room, right? Of course not. Then who did you pour it for? Mr. Wright, there is a rhyme and reason for everything. Can you wait just a little longer for it to be revealed to you? In other words, Wright, be quiet and listen. Precisely, I couldn't have said it better myself. I was surprised when I walked into the room and saw it in that messy state. So it was a mess. Are you sure it wasn't messy because of your fight with Corridor? I understand your frustration at not being able to prove your theory. However, before you go accusing people of crimes, go find yourself some evidence. And then, what did you see, next witness? And Juan, he was sitting slumped over and tired looking in the corner. Slumped over? Yes, he was just sitting there with his head tilted forward, eyes closed. He really looked like he was sleeping. Is it just me, or did that right there sound a little odd? When I saw sitting like that, I thought he was that he had a knife in his chest. Okay, that was a bad guess. Then what did cross your mind? I thought maybe he had smashed everything up in anger because he lost the Grand Prix, and then felt tired after his rampage, so he decided to take a nap. Anyway, that's what I thought. I see, so you didn't think he was dead at all? To be honest, I thought he had just fainted or something, so I went pour him some juice. You thought he fainted? I thought he was asleep at first, but then the room was in such a messy state, I thought maybe he had gotten into a fight with someone, and that's when you went to pour him a glass of juice. Yes, he always has a hard time waking up, so John always has a glass of tomato juice to drink. I see. And after that, what happened next? When I realized that he was dead, that's when I knocked the flower vase over. And how did you come to realize that he was in fact dead? I shook him over and over, but I never got a response. So I set the glass down on the dresser and tried to take his pulse. I was shocked and staggered backwards and knocked the flower vase over. So that's what happened. Yes. This is what it all comes down to. This is the absolute end for both sides. And Adrian is letting her guard down. Phoenix, now is our best chance, to kill the prosecution's case. Isn't that a bit harsh? Miss Andrews, will you tell us the truth this time? Okay. So you honestly didn't think he was dead when you found him? No, not at all. Even though this is what you saw when you discovered the body. What is the meaning of this? Isn't it obviously, Your Honor? There is a knife sticking straight out of Miss Corrida's chest. Anyone who saw this scene would have immediately thought that there was a dead man. Well, you see, I doubt a single person in the world would mistake this for someone who fainted, and then so nonchalantly go pour some drink. Your point is, Miss Andrews, your testimony just now, it was all one giant lie. And your lie has proven one thing very clearly, that you are the real killer. No. It looks like the defense has somehow brought the ugly truth to light. The defendant, Mr. Matt Engred, is not guilty after all. But that's impossible. You're wrong, Miss Andrews. Try to have some composure. It wasn't me. It wasn't me, I tell you. It was Matt, I swear it. He's the one who killed Juan. But you were the one who refused to testify. And your reason for not doing so was that you might end up incriminating yourself. That's because... Miss Andrews, I will give you one last chance. What exactly are you hiding that might incriminate you? I refuse to testify. Then there is no need for this court to continue any further. Mr. Matt Engard's innocence has been clearly demonstrated. Is it over? Have we found the truth at last? What's wrong, Phoenix? Usually the real killer confesses his or her guilt. And now that I think about it, this is the first time someone hasn't. Now then, I would like to hand down my verdict for Mr. Matt Engard. Your Honor, the prosecution feels that it would be premature to pass down the verdict at this time. What? The reason is quite simple. This witness has yet to speak the absolute real truth. The absolute real truth. What are you? Witness? Don't you understand yet? Huh? I don't know who planted this silly idea in your head, but as long as you protect yourself through your silence, Matt Engard will go free, and in his place, you will become the guilty party. That's a lie. I don't believe you. What? I was told if I spoke, then it would be all over and Matt would never be declared guilty. What in the world is she talking about? Has she lost it? I can't speak about it. I'm too scared. It's Franziska from Karma, huh? Don't you remember Phoenix? As Andrew lives by gripping tight. Miss Andrews lives by gripping tightly onto the words of another, because she doesn't have the strength to believe in herself. Then, right now, Miss Andrews is. Yesterday she was tossed a lifesaver by Miss von Karma. Don't say a word, no matter what happens. If you do, Matt Engard will be acquitted. Miss Andrews undyingly believes in those words right now and is clinging onto them. Then what should we do? This is the first time I heard ever come across anything like this. But Miss Andrews has to be the killer, right? All we have to do now is get or not guilty. That is my only priority. It wasn't me, I'm begging you, please believe me. I didn't kill Juan. Help, please. Someone. Help me. Mr. Wright? Yes, Your Honor. The court can't continue on like this. Therefore, I'd like to hear what you intend to do. What I intend to do. What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to say? Right? I suggest you think very carefully about this. Think about what this witness did and what she did not do. And think about who is the real mastermind behind this crime. Who's the real master? Isn't that obviously? There's no one else I could be except the woman crying over there, right? Come now, what will you do? What kind of man are you, Mr. Phoenix, right? Force Andrews to testify. I have to win complete acquittal today. There's no way around that. But I can't bring myself to do it like this. Not when she's making a face like that. Miss Andrews, I would like to know what you are really hiding. Mr. Wright, are you sure you know what you're doing? Sure, Mr. Engard will get an acquittal, but in his place you would be found guilty. Is this how you really want this trial to end? Be quiet, how dare you? You're trying to trick me. I commend you for trying, Mr. Edgeworth. However, it's clear that the defense theory is the truth. You're wrong. What a shame. I had hoped things wouldn't come to this. However, what is it, Mr. Edgeworth? Miss Andrews, since you absolutely refuse to testify, it falls on my shoulders to disclose this to the court. Stop. Miss Edgeworth? This witness, how should I put this? She has an illness. What? And because of this illness, she has tried to commit suicide in the past. Stop. Please stop. No matter how much you want to hide, it's no use. I have the evidence right here. That's the second part of the suicide report. The attempted suicide report. What will you do now, witness? You know what I am about to do, don't you? I will now reveal to the court the true nature of the pitiful woman known as Andrew and Andrews. The secret of her deeper dependent nature. Having other people know that it scares her more than anything else in the world. Please stop, I beg you. If people find out, I'll... If you're going to say you would choose death, that is of no concern to me. Edgeworth, how can you be so cold? However, before you die, I will pull the tube from your still breathing lips. No matter what I have to do. So will you tell this court yourself? Tell the court yourself, or shall I? Either, it's fine with me. I'll talk, but please, help me. Nothing matters anymore. When I first saw him, I really thought he had fainted, honest. When I realized he was dead, that was when I formulated my plan. Once I made sure there was no one in the hallway, I made a dash back to Matt's room, and then I stabbed Joan's dead body with the knife and ripped off the button. Just when I finished and was returning to Matt's room, I had a bit of an inconvenience, and that's why I ended up using the nickel samurai costume. Stab the body with the knife, but why would you do that? Isn't it obviously to pin the blame on a certain person? A certain cowardly man. What do you mean by all of this? It might take this court a little while to understand, but this is the truth. The real killer is Matt. The scumbag of a man, I never forgive him. He's trying to escape his guilt again, just like last time. Last time? Miss Andrews stabbed the victim Joan Corrida in the chest with the knife. However, she didn't do it with murder in mind. She did it with the intent to framing Matt Engard for the murder. And this is her crime. What? How is this possible? I mean, wasn't Miss Andrews supposed to be the real murderer? Mr. Wright, please get over your shock and commence the cross-examination. But you could tell from the state the room was in that there must have been a fight. Are you telling the truth when you say that you did not know he was dead? He had a scarf tied around his neck, but that scarf is a part of the jamming ninja's costume, so I didn't think anything about it was strange. His head was also tilted down a bit. I couldn't see his face that well. That's why I thought I waking up and went to pour the juice. When I realized he was dead, that was when I formulated my plan. What is this plan you had? I knew right away the murderer was Matt. I knew because he was going to expose Matt's weakest weak point into the world. So Matt did this to stop Juan and silence him for good. That's when I thought I should forge some evidence and pin the crime on Matt. So the fourth piece of evidence were the knife and the button. The first thing that came to mind was to plant the knife. Once I made sure there was no one in the hallway, I made a dash back to Matt's room. That was so you could get the knife correct. The knife Matt used at dinner had his fingerprints all over it. I thought if I used that, then the police would certainly turn their eyes towards him. Matt was snapping with his costume on at at the time. I slipped in, took the knife and returned to the scene of the crime. And then I stabbed Joan's dead body with the knife and ripped off the button. So you were the one who stabbed the victim with the knife. It gives me goosebumps to think about it now. What a horrible thing I did. But at the time I couldn't control my own body. It moved on its own. Then when I stabbed Joan's dead body, I suddenly realized something. If I used the button somehow, I could make Matt look even more suspect. So you thought to rip one of the buttons off and then plant it in Engel's hakama. Yes, that's what I had planned to do, but things never go that smoothly, do they? Just when I finished and was returning to Matt's room, I had a bit of an inconvenience. Inconvenience? There was a woman with a camera at the ready loitering in the hallway. I'm willing to bet my spice it was Lotta. There was also a woman with a ray gun, and they were at the ready, pacing back and forth. That's Miss Olbeck for you. I had already been caught and made into a big scoop for a certain weekly tabloid once, so I couldn't very well go out looking like myself and get caught again. And that's why I ended up using the nickel samurai costume. And you were the one who prepared the costume, weren't you? Yes, I took it from Global Studio. I also put it into Joan's guitar case that day before the award ceremony. You did this in preparation for the press conference, correct? Yes, Joan wanted to wear that costume and hold a press conference in it. He was going to disclose Matt's biggest secret. There. And what is this secret? That's I don't know. Anyway, I thought that if I were to leave Joan's room in the nickel samurai costume, then people would think that Matt was the real murderer. I was very careful not to leave any fingerprints when I opened the guitar case. I absolutely did not want anyone to know about the costume. I think we heard enough. So after that, you went back to Miss Engel's room and planted the button into Matt's hakama, yes. After that, I folded up the costume I was wearing and put it into a bag. Then I snuck it out of the hotel and got rid of it. My word, what does all this mean? Miss Edgeworth, is it? Miss Edgeworth, is it? The real criminal is Matt Engard. Yesterday, that woman prosecutor sat me down for a talk. Francisca, huh? She said that I should under no circumstance confess to what I had done. That if I just kept quiet, then Matt would be found guilty for sure. I had no choice but to believe in her words. What this witness has done is clearly unlawful. However, as long as her testimony stands, we can be certain she is not the real killer. Wait, Your Honor. The defense... Right? It's pointless. At this point in time, it is not possible to indict Miss Andrews on anything. Yes, exactly. There isn't a single piece of evidence that points to her as the murderer. The cross-examination of the witness is over, and so it's the trial. You couldn't establish that the witness was the culprit. Please let it go, Mr. Wright. But, Mr. Edgeworth, please place Miss Andrews under arrest for further questioning. Understood, Your Honor. The prosecution will arrange for her detention immediately. That is all. Court is adjourned for today. Today's trial, it's over. And I didn't win an acquaintance. Witness, would you mind if I ask you something? Edgeworth, what is it? Before you leave court today, I wonder if I might look at one thing. The card in your hand. It's had my interest for quite some time now. What exactly is it? Oh, this. Mr. White also asked about this. Although I didn't remember at the time you asked me about it, Mr. Wright. I remember just now. I found this in the room in the room that day. The room? That day. Yes. I found this card when I discovered Juan's body. It was lying there right next to him. You found that card next to the victim's body. I suppose I must have unconsciously slipped it into my pocket. But it's not as if this card has any relevance to Juan's murder, right? Yeah, I guess not, but it's still a strange card if you ask me. But as far as a clue to this case, I don't see why. Witness that card. Give it to me, hurry. Edgeworth, do you have any idea what you have stupidly yet inadvertently done? I can't believe you have hid this from me all this time. I didn't mean to. What is this all about? I've never seen Edgeworth so emotional before. That card, what in the world is it, and what does it mean? To be continued.